Test 1 2 1 2.
Nachamu, Nachamu, Abi Yomar Eloheichem, Nachamu, Nachamu, Abi Yomar Eloheichem, Nachamu, Nachamu, Abi Yomar Eloheichem, Nachamu, Nachamu, Abi Yomar Eloheichem. Comfort us in our wilderness. Comfort us as we struggle to take care of one another. Comfort us in our wilderness. Comfort us as we struggle with this world. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami Yomar Eloheichem, Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami Yomar Eloheichem. In December of 2023, Rachel Goldberg Poland offered a speech at the United Nations, during which she shared a poem she had written. The poem began, "There is a lullaby that says your mother will cry 1,000 tears before you grow to be a man. I have cried 1,000,000 tears in the last 67 days. We all have. Over 300 days have passed since Rachel Goldberg Poland delivered that speech. And here we find ourselves, over a year past October 7th, having shed oceans of tears and seeking that elusive comfort promised by God to the Jewish people through the prophet Isaiah. And so on this holiest of days, as we gather to mourn, to connect, to remember, and to honor, we turn to our tradition to give voice to our anguish, our questions, our purpose, and perhaps most importantly, to our hope. Our service of commemoration this afternoon will be in 4 parts, exploring the themes of mourning, solidarity, healing, and hope. In shaping our service, we allowed our tradition's structure of mourning to guide us. Judaism offers a framework to guide us gently through our grief. Mourning, the very first phase called aninut, takes place before our loved ones have even been buried, during which the mourner is exempt from most mitzvot, with the understanding that we can do nothing but grieve. Solidarity, the second phase of mourning, the period of Shiva, during which it is the obligation of the community to come to the house of the mourner 3 times a day to recite the Kaddish and to provide for all the needs of the mourner. Healing. After 30 days, we conclude the period of Shloshim, looking toward healing as we shed some of the most intensive mourning practices and as we place a permanent marker at our loved one's grave. And hope. After a year of mourning, we begin to recite the Kaddish only on our loved one's yahrzeit, bringing more light into the world each year through the lighting of a yahrzeit candle. At this stage, we consider how, through our own actions, the blessing of our loved one's memory can bring light, hope, and inspiration to our own future. Our tradition acknowledges that by no means does our mourning end after a year, certainly not during times of ongoing challenge like these. And still, our tradition pushes us to consider our path forward, to be a source of blessing unto one another and unto the world, even in our darkest times. Our service this afternoon will feature music and poetry written since October 7th, allowing all of us to experience the texts and the melodies that have given expression to the Israeli experience of this time in our history. The biblical book of Lamentations, our tradition's core text of mourning, will provide a traditional framework for our service, and we will also hear from 7 members of our community whose experiences and perspectives are varied, but who share in having wisdom to offer us. Nachamu, nachamu, ami. Find comfort, my people, as together we cry, connect, heal, and dream.
Eicha yashva vadad ha'ir abati am haita ke'almana rabati vagoyim sarati bamdinot haita lamas בחוט יבכה בלילה, ודמעתה הלחיה, אין לה מנחם מכל אוהביה. כל רעיה בגדובה, היו לה לאויבים. גלתה יהודה מעוני ומרוב עבודה, היא ישבה בגויים, לא מצאה מנוח. כל רודפיה השיגוה בין המצרים. דרכי ציון אבלות, מבלי באי מועד, כל שעריה שוממים, כהנים נאנחים. בתוליה נוגות והימלה. היו צריה לראש אויביה שלו, כי אדוני הוגה על רוב פשעיה, עולליה הלכו שבי לפני צר. Echa, the Hebrew title and first word of the Book of Lamentations, is a collection of elegies called kinot. Poets have written kinot to mourn each of our people's tragedies. The composer Yagel Harush composed this kina to cry out for Kibbutz Be'eri. We will hear it performed by the Jerusalem Orchestra East and West, a multicultural orchestra featuring Jewish, Muslim, and Christian musicians from all over the world. Echa, how did Be'eri turn into my tomb, the day of my light to the day of my gloom? Its song silenced, trampled fruit and leaf, my eyes well with tears from the depth of my grief. Echa, how did the Torah, arranged and arrayed in all her glory, not rush to their aid? On the day of her beauty, my countenance stained, my eyes well with tears from the depth of my pain. Echa, how could Yisrael, when they call out to God asking for life, receive nothing but blood, elder and child, till their blood overflow, their joy violated by bloodthirsty foe? My eyes well with tears from the depth of my woe. Echa, how we stagger and reel, Creator above. For how long can a nation bleed with love? Rise up now, shine forth, we will dance again. In your great mercy, please, heal our pain, heal our hearts, dispel our fears. Let us water Be'eri from the well of our tears.
Hushat et עובר אומה, עד אן אומה תהיה מהומה, עד אן קומה תושפל אדמה, ועתה קומה להאיר נרי, ובעין רחמך תרפא שברי, ואני הנובעת תשקה בארי, ואני הנובעת תשקה בארי.
Our first speaker this afternoon is Yoel Magid. Yoel has been part of our WRT community for over 2 decades, serving as our executive director for 10 years, and since then as a cherished teacher and lecturer in our congregation. From 1973 to 1999, Yoel lived in Israel on Kibbutz Be'eri, where he became the general secretary of the kibbutz. Over the past year, Yoel has played an integral role in helping to connect our congregation to his beloved home, and has worked tirelessly to encourage our community's support of Be'eri.
Stunned by the horror of October 7th, Israelis felt the bankruptcy and inadequacy of language to express their feelings and emotions. And ein milim, no words, became the most frequent response. I too had difficulty in answering well-intentioned friends and families in my community here who asked, how are you, or how are you coping? Without saying, from the pain of inside, how do you think I'm feeling? Losing so many friends, their children and their grandchildren, and with my niece's husband still a hostage in Gaza today. Fortunately, over time, others, poets, found words and language to express some of what we were going through. Here are 2 short poems by Michael Zatz that captured some of my feelings. As you can imagine, there are many nights that weren't very quiet for me in the past year. This is a poem about sleeping. Ever since that black Shabbat, always assume that even if my eyes are closed, I'm not asleep. Do not ask me about dreams either. I avoid nightmares as though they were bullets. Second poem is called A New Language. Once again, I feel that an immigrant child, like an immigrant child, pretending that I understand, nodding in agreement, shaking my head in disagreement. But everyone around me is speaking another language, one that I relearn anew after October 7th, Hebrew.
Thank you, Yoel. Israel's entry in the 2024 Eurovision competition was originally entitled October Rain, an expression both of Israel's anguish and strength during the past year. The song's lyrics were deemed too political for the competition, forcing the lyricists to alter the words and the title of the song to Hurricane. The Eurovision performer, Aiden Golan, faced tremendous anti-Semitism while in Sweden for the competition, basically confined to her hotel room for the duration of her stay. Shockingly, however, the song ended up placing second in the popular vote, displaying a surprising show of support for Israel from around the world. These are the song's original lyrics, October Rain. Writers of the history, stand with me, look into my eyes and see. People go away but never say goodbye. Someone stole the moon tonight, took my light. Everything is black and white. Who's the fool who told you boys don't cry? Hours and flowers, life is no game for the cowards. While the time goes wild, every day I'm losing my mind, holding on this mysterious ride, dancing in the storm, we got nothing to hide. Take me home and leave the world behind. Baby, promise me that never again. I'm still wet from this October rain. October rain. Living in a fantasy, ecstasy, everything is meant to be. We shall pass, but love will never die. Hours and flowers, life is no game for the cowards. While the time goes wild, every day I'm losing my mind, holding on this mysterious ride, dancing in the storm, we got nothing to hide. Take me home and leave the world behind. Baby, promise me that never again. I'm still wet from this October rain. October rain. October rain. לא נשאר אוויר לנשום, אין מקום, אין אותי מיום ליום, כולם ילדים טובים אחד אחד. Please rise as we prepare to join together in the recitation of the Mourner's Kaddish for all those lost on October 7th and in the months following October 7th. When you came into the sanctuary this afternoon, many of you took a card, and on that card is written the name of somebody we lost on October 7th. We recite the Kaddish in honor of all of these people and in honor of all those whose cards were not taken. I'm going to count to shalosh. I'm going to count to 3. I'm going to invite everybody in this room to share the name that's on your card in preparation for the recitation of the Kaddish. Echad, shtayim, shalosh. Together. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divrach irute v'yamlich malchute. B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehe shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'le'alnei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalal shemei dekudsha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha. May their memories endure for blessing. Please be seated. We'll continue now with the next section of our service called Solidarity. Last March, I traveled to Israel for a 5-day solidarity mission with 17 members of our congregation. While there is so much we are all carrying with us from that trip, I'd like to share one particular experience. We spent a morning on a farm near Ashdod that had lost most of its workforce after October 7th, when its immigrant workers fled the area or left the country. We helped to clip cucumber plants to wires so that the cucumbers wouldn't collapse as they grew. The agricultural work of 17 people from the suburbs of New York City was far from perfect. In planning our trip, we were very particular about wanting to volunteer only in places where we could actually be helpful, so as not to be a burden. Halfway through the morning, our tour educator took the farmer aside to ask him in Hebrew, "Is what we're doing actually helpful to you?" The farmer shrugged his shoulders and replied, "If you weren't here, who else do you think would do this? No one else is here." I'm not sure how many of our imperfectly clipped cucumber plants ever ripened, but clearly our presence and our efforts meant something. There's a phrase in the Talmud that was a constant refrain for me growing up, and I'm sure was a mainstay for many of you as well. Kol Yisrael arevim ze bazeh. Growing up, I always heard this sentence translated as, all of Israel is responsible for one another. But the actual meaning is so much more interesting than that. The phrase is perhaps more accurately translated as, all of Israel is mixed up in one another. Even if we live halfway across the world, even if we've never been to Israel ourselves, and even if we're not sure we've found the perfect way to help, we are inextricably mixed up with our brothers and sisters in Israel and around the world. Our presence with our Israeli family, whether in body or in spirit, matters. Yeshvu la'aretz yidbu ziknei vatzion helu afar al rosham chagru sakim horidu la'aretz roshan betulot Yerushalayim kalu vadmaot einai chamar meru me'ai nishpach la'aretz kevedi al shever batami be'atei folel ve'yonek birchovot kirya le'imotam yomeru aye dagan vayayin behit at pam kechalal birchovot ir behishtapech nafsham el chekimotam. The poem Mothers by Osnat Eldar. They gather at night one by one whose abducted daughter's blood-stained image allows her no peace, one whose son fell in battle, one whose children will remain forever in the little safe room at the corner of the house in the kibbutz, one who remained mute on the other end of the line, scratching the horrors onto her skin. From time to time, she whispered to him or to her, "I love you, I am with you, I am here. Hello?" One who wasn't able to say goodbye. She who is holding on to a film clip fragment showing him alive. She who woke up on Shabbat with the foreknowledge of death taking root within her. At night, in my darkened room, they wander in circles, shoulders drooping, deprived of rest, sleep-crazed. Mothers, if only they could change places with the boy or the girl ready for captivity or death. Mothers, not yet used to wandering. They come to me at night, one by one. I hug them with compassion, with longing, absorbing into myself the feelings of guilt, the helplessness, the abyss, and I silently caress the new maternal title imposed upon them. At this time, it is my honor to call upon three members of our community, Elena Markley, Ruth Sussman, and Justin Arist, who have all shown solidarity over the past year by traveling to Israel on three very different types of experiences, and who have all brought their experiences home in meaningful ways. I'll invite Elena, Ruth, and Justin to come forward to sit on the bima, and I'll introduce you one at a time to speak. We'll begin with Elena. Elena Markley is a Scarsdale native who grew up in our congregation. We're so happy that Elena and her husband Garrett have returned to WRT to raise their children, Mason and Imri, both students in our ECC. Elena has served in leadership roles in a number of WRT's social action and Israel response initiatives, and has been working to help our families with young children to find meaningful and age-appropriate ways to connect to Israel during this time. Last May, Elena traveled to Israel to volunteer as part of a JNF mission.
Having grown up in the WRT community and having visited Israel many times, Israel has always had a special place in my heart. October 7th stirred something within me, as it did for so many of us, and I ached for a way to connect with and be of service to Israel. Does it sound weird? Okay. As the mother of two young children in our ECC, the decision to go with my mom on a women's volunteer mission to Israel with Jewish National Fund this past May was not an easy one. The decision to actually get on the plane was even harder. But the moment I landed in Tel Aviv and walked through the beautiful Jerusalem stone-lined arrivals terminal at Ben Gurion Airport, flanked with memorial portraits of each of the hostages, I knew I had made the right choice. The next 4 days were meaningful beyond measure and words. We volunteered to support some of Israel's most vulnerable communities directly affected, if not completely devastated, by October 7th. We painted a kindergarten at a kibbutz in the Gaza envelope to welcome the children back home, while we heard IDF bombs dropping in Gaza mere kilometers away. We prepared hundreds of meals for soldiers on the front lines in the north in a tiny Druze restaurant whose kitchen had been kosherized for the purpose, and we spoke with the soldiers who came to pick up the food. "We can taste your love with every bite," they told us with gratitude. But one of the most memorable experiences was our afternoon speaking with Shelley Shem Tov, the mother of Omer Shem Tov, a beautiful 21-year-old who has been held in Gaza for over 372 days. Shelley looked just like a woman who might be a member of WRT. She shared that, like most Israeli families, theirs always came together for dinner on Shabbat. Omer always said the blessing over the wine. Her last memories of her son were from Shabbat dinner, the night before he was taken from the Nova Festival. Omer had been held hostage in the early days with Itay Regev, a young teenager who was released in the first deal almost a year ago. On his release, Itay told Shelley that the ritual of Shabbat helped Omer maintain a sense of time and purpose in captivity. He saved the salt from the pita or pretzel given to him during the week, and on one occasion even saved grape juice to make some kind of Shabbat observance. Together, Itay and Omer would count the days until Shabbat, put a piece of toilet paper on their heads, and recite the Sabbath blessings. Itay told the Shem Tovs that Shabbat was when they felt closest to home and family. Shelley took great comfort in knowing that her son's commitment to observing Shabbat was giving him some hope in a hopeless place. When I left Israel, I left with a renewed sense of purpose and an eagerness to bring that sense of connection and ritual back to my family and WRT. One way we're doing that this year is through the ECC's Tat Shabbat program. Tat Shabbats have always been a special and favorite way for our youngest congregants to celebrate Shabbat and become familiar with its rituals. This year, we plan to use Tat Shabbats to provide young families with an opportunity to connect with and give back to Israel in various meaningful ways, such as through collecting tzedakah for an Israeli cause and using our craft activities to express our solidarity with sister communities in Israel. I hope that this brief story about Omer Shem Tov will encourage you to join us in this very sacred endeavor by making Shabbat a ritual in your home and in our WRT community.
Next, I'll introduce Ruth. Ruth Sussman, together with her husband, Andrew, and their children, Evan, Abigail, and Jeremy, have been members of our community for over 25 years. Ruth, who has made Jewish nonprofit leadership an integral part of her life's work, has traveled to Israel over the past year, including on a trip as a member of WRT's delegation last spring. As a collector of Israeli art, she planned several events to show support for Israeli artists after October 7th.
The Betzalel School of Art, it was founded in Jerusalem in 1906, a full 4 decades before the founding of the State of Israel. Our Zionist leaders of that era called for the creation of a school for artists before we even had a modern state. That's how important the arts are and really have always been to our people. From Miriam and her timbrels and her dancing to these beautiful Torah finials behind me, to the magnificent illuminated Hebrew manuscripts from the 15th century, right through till today. My husband Andrew and I, we only recently discovered the world of contemporary Israeli art, but once we did, we were all in. And over the past several years, we've gotten to know many Israeli painters and photographers and other artists, and we've been really lucky to bring their art into our home. In October last year, I was genuinely surprised to realize that my deepest connection to Israel was through my relationships with these artists and some galleries and museums. And in the early, very dark days of the war, I found the thinnest sliver of healing, personally, by connecting with these artists and trying my best to support them. When I was in Israel last March with WRT, after trying to clip the cucumbers, with our group, we did our best. I was able to gather with many of the artists on our last evening there in Tel Aviv. As Israeli citizens, some of the artists had been called up to their IDF reserve unit. Some were new roles supporting their families. And for some of these artists, it was the first time they'd gone out in any way since October 7th. And what did I say to them? I told them that we, all of us here, we cared about them. We were thinking about them. We were sending strength to them and prayers. And I told them that I was personally committing to helping them sell their art, even in this troubled time. And you understand that art for them is not something extra, it's their livelihood. As Israel slowly found its footing in this war, so too did the arts community in Israel slowly figure out how to get by. Galleries and museums reopened. The artists who could get back to their studios started creating new works. And then, of course, Hostage Square materialized on the very front doorstep of the Tel Aviv Museum on its plaza, and it's embraced by all who pass through. You won't be surprised, unfortunately, to learn that the Israeli arts community has been hit again and again by the horrifying rise of anti-Semitism in the global arts community. It's unbelievable, really. Like, do we really have to say it? That art, it's a tool for understanding the world, for communicating big ideas, for finding these core truths that our daily lives may obscure. It's not there to divide us or reduce us narrowly to our identities, to our nationalities, to our belief, to our faith. The boycotting of Israeli art and artists, it's deeply personal to me. Anyway, these artists, they keep creating. That's what they do. And in seeing the works that they've created over the last year, I've gained new insights into Israel, into my faith, into the world around me. I invite you to seek out some Israeli art soon. I hope it'll speak right into your soul. It's the best thing art can do for you.
Now I'll introduce Justin. Justin Arist has served as mayor of Scarsdale since 2023, having previously served as village trustee beginning in 2018. In the spring of 2024, Mayor Arist traveled to Israel with a group of 12 other mayors from around the country. We are grateful to call Justin, together with his wife Allison and children Maddie and Julian, devoted members of our congregation.
Four months ago, I traveled to Israel on a solidarity mission with the Combat Anti-Semitism movement, alongside mayors from across the United States. We went to bear witness, listen, and deepen our understanding of the challenges Israel faces in the aftermath of October 7th and amidst the rising tide of anti-Semitism. While I've always supported Israel's fight for peace and security, this journey profoundly underscored its importance. Meeting survivors, seeing the destruction inflicted by Hamas, and hearing personal stories from hostage families, government officials, and everyday citizens brought a newfound urgency to the need for action. Israel is a remarkable nation, resilient and diverse. We met with citizens from all walks of life: Jewish, Arabs, Druze, and Bedouins, who proudly call Israel home. Despite differences in faith and ethnicity, they share a common Israeli identity. It becomes even harder to listen to the lies that are being spread on college campuses and social media when a Bedouin family, a Muslim family, invites you into their home for dinner and shares stories of serving in the IDF. The patriarch of this family, who had served as a colonel, chose to defend Israel, his country, his home. This experience highlighted a powerful truth. Israel is a nation where people of different backgrounds unite to protect their shared homeland. Israel stands as a beacon of human rights in the region for gender equality, LGBTQ inclusion, and religious freedom, values that are under constant threat from groups like Hamas and Hezbollah and the Iranian government that supports them. Our travels took us throughout Israel, but one of the more profound moments was visiting Kibbutz Be'eri, where the scars of the October 7th attacks remain raw. Survivors guided us through homes and community buildings marked by bullet holes and devastating damage from explosives and fire. Only 2 miles from Gaza, we could hear shelling while we were there. We were instructed to lay on the floor if a siren went off, as there would not be time to reach a shelter. This was the reality that these people had lived with every day, and it was staggering, and that was before October 7th. The stories of the survivors were heartbreaking, yet inspiring. We met two sisters who had lost close family members. One had lost two sons, and both of them had lost their mother. Stories like theirs are far too common in Be'eri, but as WRT knows, the people there are rebuilding, not because they've had time to heal, but because it's their home, and they refuse to let terror destroy it. We also visited towns like Sderot and Ofakim. Sderot is less than a mile from the Gaza border, and Ofakim is just 12 miles further east. The harrowing stories of loss and what we saw in security footage from that day will stay with me forever. Many in these communities had woken up early to attend services on what they thought would be a quiet day of Shabbat and Shemini Atzeret, only to face unimaginable terror. I was moved by the actions of those who fought back, many giving their lives to protect their loved ones, their neighbors, and their communities. We met with the mayor of Ofakim, who spent that day pleading with the Israeli government for additional security support. In the days following the attacks, he faced immense pressures to evacuate. He chose instead to remain, fortifying his city with citizen brigades, believing his community would be stronger together. By staying, he sought to minimize the emotional toll that displacement would bring. His leadership was not just an act of defiance, but a testament to the resilience of his people. On June 8th, the day when 4 hostages were rescued, we attended a rally in Tel Aviv's Hostage Square. The crowd's cheers when our group was introduced were unforgettable, and the gratitude and warmth we received were overwhelming. Although they may not have known our towns by name, they valued our presence as Americans standing with Israel. This moment underscored the solidarity Israel feels it is losing with America. But despite a growing sense of isolation, Israel fights for its life, its freedom, and its future. As Americans, we must stand with them, not just in words, but through actions. I was honored to be there, standing with them, representing Scarsdale. Parshat Nitzavim resonates deeply with the choices Israel faces today. In this portion, Moses speaks to the Israelites on the eve of entering the Promised Land, presenting a choice. I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Choose life so that you and your descendants may live. This call to choose life is more than a command for survival. It is an appeal to live with purpose, uphold sacred values, and protect the sanctity of life. For Israel, choosing life is seen in its people's resilience as they rebuild and find ways to thrive, even amid unspeakable tragedy. Choosing life is not merely about resisting those who seek harm. It is a declaration of hope, strength, and commitment to a future where peace and justice prevail. Israel continues to choose life by defending not only its own freedom, but also the values that bind us as free people. Their struggle is not just a Jewish cause, but a human one. Standing with Israel means standing for universal values and having the courage to defend them. Today we stand at a crossroads. We must remember Parshat Nitzavim and reflect on our role in this battle between life and death, good and evil. We cannot sit idly by while those who seek destruction celebrate the loss of innocent lives. Instead, we must choose life by opposing these forces. So on this solemn yahrzeit of the October 7th attacks, as we remember those who we lost, let us commit ourselves to stand in solidarity with Israel. May the memory of those lost be a blessing, inspiring us to fight for a future where peace, justice, and freedom prevail, both in Israel and around the world. And may the hostages come home soon.
During our congregation's trip to Israel last March, our Torah educator, Uri Feinberg, who a number of you may know from previous WRT trips to Israel, played a song for us that had been written since October 7th by the band Jane Bordeaux, which describes itself as a folk Israeli bluegrass band. They wrote a song called Lo Levad, which literally means not alone. And I think we all feel grateful to Justin and to Ruth and to Elena for ensuring that our family in Israel is lo levad, never feels alone. You've reminded us as well that none of us sitting in this room are alone. העת שבגינה שלנו לא שרד, נשרף כולו בבוקר מכולה לך. הגינה עומדת יתומה, לא נותר מי שישקה בה את האדמה. מי ישיר בטקס בקיבוץ, ירקוד במעגל על הבמה בחוץ. יקשט טרקטורים ועגלות, יקצור את החיטה שבשדות. נושיט כולנו יד, אנחנו לא לבד. שותפי גורל כן ואהבה כעם אחד. נבכה ונתגבר, בועז לא נישבר. יש לנו רק אחד, את השני ולא יותר, ולא צריך יותר. שורשי העץ נחזים בלב האדמה, שובו לעלות לצמוח עם המנגינה. תנו נתיק של נחמה נצחוק הילדים, אנחנו בית לעצמנו סוף לנדודים. נושיט כולנו יד, אנחנו לא לבד. שותפי גורל כן ואהבה כעם אחד. נבכה ונתגבר, בועז לא נישבר. יש לנו רק אחד, את השני ולא יותר, ולא צריך יותר. עוד את הפרחים כל מי שנקטפו, והתואר מלאכים בדגל נטפו. מי שעוד לא שם נהיה לו מגדלור, לכפור גדול אשר אלינו יחזור. נושיט כולנו יד, אנחנו לא לבד. שותפי גורל כן ואהבה כעם אחד. נבכה ונתגבר, בועז לא נישבר. יש לנו רק אחד, את השני ולא יותר, ולא צריך יותר. The Jewish tradition has long acknowledged that there are multiple dimensions to the idea of healing. There is, of course, healing of the body from illness or injury. But going back as far as the biblical book of Psalms, our tradition acknowledges a concept known as refuat hanefesh, often translated as healing of the soul, but perhaps most accurately translated as healing of the self. Refuat hanefesh encompasses all of the non-physical dimensions of healing. healing of our minds, of our hearts, and of our souls. Each day, as part of our Mishaberach prayer for healing, we ask God for healing of both guf and nefesh, of both body and spirit. In the midst of the brokenness we all feel, it is comforting that our tradition offers us the language to pray for both physical and spiritual healing. And yet, as we grapple with the events of the past year, as we see the suffering that endures for so many, even a prayer for spiritual healing might feel like a stretch. I come back to the words we recite here at WRT each time we pray for healing, Debbie Friedman's Mishaberach. Through her lyrics, Debbie of blessed memory offers a radical and poignant definition of healing. Mishaberach avotenu, makor habracha le'imotenu. May the one who blessed our fathers, source of blessing for our mothers, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. This definition of healing, I think, means finding the courage, even in the midst of our own suffering, to be a beacon of light, healing, and blessing unto others. As we try to seek out a path forward, we pray not only that God will heal broken bodies and broken hearts, we pray that God will give us strength and courage so that we can be God's partners in the work of healing.
Habat Yerushalayim ma ashvelach va'anachamech betulat bat Zion ki gadol kagam shivarech mir palach. El Malei Rachamim, a poem composed with the title of the Mourning Prayer. El Malei Rachamim ba'olam shelo hayu bo rachamim, hamsei menucha adina tachat kanfei hashchina, ba'ma'alot hanishbarot shel zohar ha'adam. El Malei Rachamim, God of compassion, in a universe that lacked compassion, grant tender rest beneath the wings of the Shekhinah, in the broken spheres of human radiance. To the souls of each and every of the injured and the violated in the horrors of the pogrom of October 7th, for the fear that fell upon each man and woman, elders, youth, and children, our mouths do not know how to scream or put into words. For we lament and mourn for them, for us. Because of this, our hearts are faint. Because of these, our eyes grow dim. Woe to us, for we are broken. Woe. For our homes were shattered, our souls and bodies tormented, and our faces darkened. Therefore, compassionate one, reveal our torment to the world and for all time and from one end of the earth to the other. May the silenced voices utter, guard our souls in the land of life, for life is our heritage. May we come in peace to healing. Please, God, heal all the injured. Please, God, heal the families and caretakers. Please, God, hear and heal us all. And let us say, it's my honor now to call upon Mimi Roca to share with us. Mimi Roca has served as Westchester County District Attorney since 2020. Previously, she served for 16 years as Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Department of Justice in the Southern District of New York and was frequently featured as a legal analyst for MSNBC and NBC News. Since October 7th, D.A. Rocha has been an outspoken voice in calling the world's attention to sexual violence perpetrated against women on October 7th. She has also organized and hosted events throughout the New York area for families of hostages who wish to share their stories. Mimi, her husband David, and their children Sabrina and Aaron have been part of the WRT community since 2012, and we are so lucky to have them.
When Cantor Kleiman and Rabbi Blake asked me to speak in the healing section of today's program, I was both deeply honored and a bit apprehensive. How can we talk about healing when our brothers and sisters are still being held captive, when we have such profound sense of loss, like there's a hole in our hearts? But as I reflected, I recognized that our clergy were not surprisingly onto something. So I hope that my sharing with you a little bit about my journey over the past year might help you think about different pathways to healing. The terrorist attack by Hamas on October 7th was barbaric and horrific. The unmistakable global silence that followed it was truly shocking. Silence about the attack, silence about the hostages, and silence about the overwhelming evidence that Hamas had tortured victims with sexual violence. In those early days of October, I struggled to understand why so many of our allies in the fight for women's rights didn't immediately speak up about the brutality. Why didn't they demand the release of the hostages, especially the women and children? Why didn't they condemn the sexual violence as they had in so many other circumstances? Why didn't they tell the deniers that it was dangerous and wrong? People I had long admired for their leadership remained silent, and my sense of shock and betrayal deepened. But from that shock and betrayal, something unexpected emerged. A sisterhood, if you will, of mostly, but not exclusively, Jewish women who decided that we could not be silent about the silence. This sisterhood was a loose coalition of lawyers, journalists, professors, and activists, many of whom I knew only professionally or by name. Initially, we thought, well, we simply need to show our would-be allies the proof of what happened. So 5 of us worked furiously over several days in November on an article titled, "The World's Feminists Need to Show Up for Israeli Victims." Only one major news network had covered the sexual violence at that point, and so we marshaled the evidence that had surfaced. Our argument was clear. Solidarity for victims of sexual assault must transcend politics and ideology. Rape can never be tolerated as a weapon of war or resistance. And speaking out on behalf of victims of October 7th does not equal a lack of compassion for the people of Gaza. When the article was published in Slate on November 30th, the overwhelming response we received from many Jewish women was, "Thank you. I thought it was just me that was feeling this way." And then I received a call from the head of a small women's rights organization in New York, a committed ally who is not Jewish. She and some other women leaders had read our article and wanted to turn it into an open letter to the UN and a public statement for others to sign. They crafted a statement titled, "Women's Rights Leaders Speak Out," and it was one of the first clear public acknowledgments and condemnations of the violence, and specifically the sexual violence. Of course, some people refused to sign that, people we asked. But over 350 elected officials, women's rights leaders, actors, filmmakers, professors, and public figures did sign on. Most importantly, women's rights leaders in Israel saw the coverage of the statement and told us that it helped them feel supported and believed. That moment was empowering. Our sisterhood grew. We wrote more articles, we organized panels, we presented the undeniable evidence of what had happened on that awful day and pressed for the urgent need to free the hostages. And we continued to press women leaders in particular about the importance for them to acknowledge and condemn Hamas's heinous acts. We organized Zooms with women's groups in Israel who were on the ground documenting what had happened, representing survivors, and working to convince the UN Special Representative to come to Israel and see the evidence for herself. We organized talks here for families of hostages and soon for released hostages themselves so that they could feel seen and heard. In early December at the UN, we watched Sheryl Sandberg, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, and other leaders talk about the sexual violence and the absolutely unacceptable silence of world feminist leaders. UN women, belatedly and too tepidly, but at least finally, issued a statement condemning Hamas's attack, acknowledging the sexual violence and calling for an investigation. We saw the UN representative actually go to Israel and issue a report that, while far from complete, was a major step forward in acknowledging evidence of sexual assault and mutilation. And there is hope that she will return to Israel to do more work. I was present in June to hear Amit Susana, a rescued hostage, speak so bravely at an event hosted by the Vice President at the White House. She spoke about being sexually assaulted at the hands of Hamas in captivity. Just last month, the US Department of Justice filed charges against leaders of Hamas, which detailed the brutality of the attack, including the sexual violence. I published an article highlighting the significance of this small step toward accountability, especially to the victims and families of October 7th. And by now, of course, every major news network has acknowledged what we already knew, but needed to be said. All of this is progress, incremental, frustratingly slow progress, and it can help us begin to heal. But for me, the most meaningful and, yes, healing part of this journey has actually been in the process itself. The prosecutor in me has had to reluctantly accept that our power does not lie in convincing everyone to see or acknowledge the truths that we see. There remains a well-funded algorithmic fog machine that will forever deny that rapes took place and also insist that they are justified resistance. While we must, of course, continue to try to educate, our mission is not to persuade the unreachable. Rather, it lies in giving voice to the victims who can no longer speak and their families who fear their loved ones are forgotten. It lies in amplifying the stories of the hostages and their families and the heroes of October 7th. And it absolutely lies in building community for those of us who feel isolated or abandoned. In the midst of all the darkness and loss this year, I've been making a conscious effort to think about the ways that my world has actually grown. People I didn't even know on October 6th of 2023 are now some of my closest friends. I feel a stronger, more meaningful bond with my community and the clergy here at WRT, with so many new colleagues and friends in Israel. I feel a new appreciation and love for Israel's existence. I have a new hunger to learn more about my own family history and the story of the Jewish people. Perhaps most significantly, I have also come to recognize that while we do have fierce and outspoken allies, we must, as Jewish people, do the work for ourselves, and we must do it together. One path toward meaningful healing is through action. Action can help reconcile the pain and the loss of what happened on October 7th with the wholeness of our Jewish identity. Action will look different for everyone, but what each of us does individually and what all of us do together matters even more. It's often hard to see that when we are struggling, but I no longer have any doubt that we can, and frankly, we must, step up, take action, and try to make a difference.
In the 1990s, Debbie Friedman began singing with an Israeli folk artist named Bat Ella. And in the years following Debbie's death, Bat Ella began translating her songs into modern Hebrew to build a bridge between Israelis and diaspora Jews, so that the words and melodies that have healed so many hearts in America might be able to reach our siblings in the East.
ומקור הברכה לאמותינו, לו מקור הכוח שבו ברכו יפיח, אומץ להפוך חיינו לברכה ונאמר Amen. מי שברך את אמותינו ומקור הברכה לאבותינו, ברך כל הנזקק ברפואה שלמה בהתחדשות הגוף, בהתחדשות הנפש, ונאמר אמן. מי שברך אבותינו מקור הברכה לאמותינו, may the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen.
We come now to the final section of our service, the section themed Hope. I struggled with the framing of this section. Of course, we should end on a hopeful note, but how can we do so genuinely and authentically when, if we're being honest with ourselves, on some days hope feels hard to muster? The prophet Zechariah, who wrote during the period of exile following the devastating destruction of the first temple in Jerusalem, calls the Jewish people Asirei Tikva, or prisoners of hope. This striking language is there to remind us that, in Rabbi Blake's words, hope is not a feeling, hope is an imperative. In fact, back in 5774, in the year 2012, Rabbi Blake offered a sermon entitled Prisoners of Hope, and it feels fitting to bring back some of those words now. To live with hope is a profound expression of our Jewishness. This is why, of course, the anthem of the State of Israel is called HaTikva, or the Hope. Many opposed the choice of HaTikva as Israel's national anthem, and you may be surprised to learn that HaTikva wasn't actually officially named Israel's anthem until 2004. The song was based on a poem written in Eastern Europe 70 years before the founding of the State of Israel. Its gloomy-sounding minor melody recycled from old European tunes and far from triumphant sounding. Many worried that it didn't represent the desired image of a strong and creative modern State of Israel. And yet, something in that yearning and eternal sense of hopefulness was impossible for us to let go of. Od lo avda tikvatenu, hatikva bat shnot alpaim. We still have not lost our hope, the hope of thousands of years, to be a free people in our land, the land of Zion and Jerusalem. And so we conclude today with hope. Hope as expressed in our ancient tradition, hope through poetry and song coming out of Israel, even during this most devastating time, and hope through words from members of our community who help us to know that our future is in the best of hands.
Zot ashiv el libi al ken ochil chaste Adonai ki lo tamnu ki lo chalu rachamav chadashim labikarim rabba emunatecha chelki Adonai amra nafshi Al ken ochilo. And we shall live by Avraham Chalfi. Life was lost, and we shall live. And we shall live and mock you, death. This is how we shall live, linking arms and strength with the majestic splendor of immortality. We shall breathe. Yes, with rage we shall breathe, and we shall live. Even if fear shuts our mouths, should one still fear? Fear what, God? After the losses we saw, we shall breathe, rage, live, and mock even if your heavens will fall upon us, life is lost. But we shall scream the scream of our immortality. I have the privilege to introduce our final speakers. First, we will invite forward to the bima Robert Fogel. So come forward at this time, Rob. Robert is a senior at Harvard University, majoring in economics. Raised at WRT, Rob graduated from our Early Childhood Center, celebrated bar mitzvah at WRT, and was confirmed in our congregation. Last fall, following the attacks of October 7th, Rob stepped down from his board leadership role in Harvard's Institute of Politics, following the decision of the organization's leadership team not to issue a statement condemning Hamas's attacks on Israel. Robert Fogel.
The day after October 7th, dozens of Harvard student groups issued a statement saying that, quote, the Israeli regime was entirely responsible for all unfolding violence. As a board member of Harvard's Institute of Politics, the largest student organization on campus, I knew that my group had a responsibility to speak out. But what I thought would be an easy task turned into a stark reminder of the true condition of Jews at Harvard and at universities across the country. The group, which had previously issued statements on racial justice, abortion, affirmative action, Russia's assault on Ukraine, said that they could not opine on political matters. Despite the clear hypocrisy and the fact that there's nothing remotely political about condemning the slaughter of innocents, the ensuing discussion revealed the anti-Semitic beliefs held by many of America's future political leaders. In the end, the group voted overwhelmingly against issuing a statement of any kind. And in protest, I, along with 2 non-Jewish members of the board, resigned, as we could no longer continue our roles in good conscience. Unfortunately, my experience is not unique among Jewish students at Harvard. Students frequently avoid taking classes on the Middle East because rather than teaching history and facts, some professors teach a one-sided narrative of Israel as a colonialist oppressor. The term Zionist is now a socially acceptable slur on campus. I've witnessed anonymous online posts so disturbing that I cannot mention them here today. And just last week, the pro-Palestinian group on campus celebrated the 1-year anniversary of October 7th, saying that it is now, quote, the time to escalate. The next day, the windows of University Hall were smashed, the John Harvard statue vandalized in a purported act of resistance. Needless to say, there is a plague of anti-Semitism in higher education. But as distressing as the situation at Harvard has been in the past year, I've also witnessed something else. I've seen a Jewish community galvanized and united as never before, students who have never entered the halls of Jewish learning, flocking now to Chabad and Hillel. Faculty have rallied in support of Jewish and Israeli students, and many of our non-Jewish peers have stood by us. As a community, we speak out, we denounce the bad faith actors, and we decry the administration when it falls short. Whatever those who wish to silence us say, we are not going anywhere. We will continue to take pride in our Jewishness. We will continue to go to Shabbat dinner. We will continue to delve deep into our studies. We will go to parties. We will make friendships, sing, laugh, and experience joy. Harvard is still our university. I know that there are students here today thinking that schools like Harvard are not welcoming to Jews. At times you would be right. But if there's one thing I can leave you with here today, it is that Harvard needs you. We cannot allow those who wish to silence us to win. To choose not to come would be to cede defeat, and that is not in the Jewish people's nature. For thousands of years, we have persevered, and we will continue for thousands more. And let it not be the hard times that bring our community together, but instead in the blessing and the majesty of being born a Jew. The Jewish community at Harvard has been a place of steadfast friendship and support throughout my academic journey. Wherever you choose to go to school, I hope you find the same. Gemar Chatima Tova.
Oh, we're kvelin now. Thank you, Rob. And I have the privilege to invite forward our congregants, couple, Joshua and Tamar Mitz, who together with their children, 5th grade Emily and 2nd grade Liam, have made WRT their congregational home for just the last couple of years. Joshua Mitz, who joined the faculty of Columbia University in 2017 as Associate Professor of Law and was named Professor of Law in 2022, uses advanced data science for his research on corporate and securities law. His primary focus is on informed trading in capital markets and related topics in law and finance. As a high schooler, Josh won the Microsoft Windows Forums Coding Hero Award for software development, a distinction that also provided him an opportunity to experience life as a coding prodigy in Israel, where, after some time, he would eventually meet his wife, Tamar. Tamar Mitz is an assistant professor of international and public affairs and a member of the Data Science Institute and the Saltzman Institute of War and Peace Studies at Columbia University. Her research addresses emerging challenges at the intersection of technology and conflict, addressing questions like, what role does social media play during conflict and civil war? How do violent and nonviolent movements use the internet to advance their cause? And in what ways can media be manipulated to shape public opinion? All areas of academic focus for our guest long before October 7th. Together, Joshua and Tamar have had a front row seat to the past year of protest and upheaval at Columbia and have become dedicated leaders in addressing anti-Semitism on campus, as well as having shared their experiences with our WRT community, which they shall this afternoon.
Good afternoon. On this day of reflection, I want to thank Rabbi Blake and all of you at the WRT community for the support and kindness you've shown us during this extraordinary difficult time. Josh and I are on the faculty at Columbia University, that place you may have heard about in the news. And it's no secret that being a Jew and Israeli on campus has come with its challenges. But beyond the headlines and tensions, there is another story I want to share with you today, one of hope. In the moments when our homeland was in crisis, when we felt alone, people at the Columbia community showed us care. Colleagues and students reached out to ask about our families' well-being and to check on us, regardless of their backgrounds and political views. Those simple acts of kindness gave us hope and strength and reminded us that no matter how much division there is around us, we can find compassion for each other. We sought to bring that compassion in our interactions with students inside and outside the classroom, to try to rise above all the hatred and division that was consuming campus. Those moments of human connection were like stars in a dark night, reminding us that even in the midst of endless tragedy, we have so much more in common than we realize.
Thank you, Rabbi Blake, and to all of you for the opportunity to speak with you on this sacred day. I just want to pick up where Tamar left off and talk a bit more about how we have tried to inspire that hope in the students around us at Columbia and what we hope to see going forward. As Rabbi Blake mentioned, I teach corporate law at Columbia and never imagined that I would find myself supporting Jewish and Israeli students in the kind of environment we find ourselves in now. Many of you probably know the history. In the spring, Jewish and non-Jewish law students came together at Columbia to launch a student group against anti-Semitism. We were shocked when our group was denied recognition by the student body, who caved to voices that sought not to protest Israeli policy, but rather to boycott Jews and Israelis as people. As the summer approached, many of you also remember the encampments when Jews who support the Jewish state of Israel were denied entry into common spaces and told to, quote, go back to Poland. Those were heartbreaking moments at Columbia. But as Tamar said, out of the devastation and destruction emerged green shoots of hope. Our students came together to be there for each other, to hug each other, and to cry on each other's shoulders. Faculty discovered that there's a community of Jewish and Israeli students across the university whose courage and passion inspired us in the midst of our own struggles. To conclude, I want to tell one of those stories to leave you with a bit of that sweet taste of hope for the future. This past Monday, the one-year anniversary of October 7th, our students came together in partnership with Hillel on campus to host an art installation and remembrance ceremony for the victims and hostages who are still in Gaza. We were very happy to see that the president of Columbia and the co-chairs of our board of trustees participated in that art installation and ceremony, along with faculty, administrators, and other students. I was so proud for our Jewish students on campus for not giving in to fear and intimidation, but standing firm and leading our community, a lot like Rob, in a collective day of mourning and remembrance. On that day, we, the faculty, followed them. So in the end, just as Tamar said, it's our students who give me hope, who give us hope. Their unwavering optimism, their insistence to keep dreaming of a happier future on campus, and their passion to give back to those around them, their friends, their families, and the broader community. Yes, these times are hard, but there are so many reasons to have hope for the future. Gamar Chatima Tova.
This soulful Yagel Oshri tune, Latzeit Medikaon, How to Get Past Depression, was written actually before October 7th, but has become a symbolic anthem for the return of Israeli soldiers fighting Hamas terrorists. The song has resonated mostly because of the chorus, which roughly translates as, even in the darkest hours of the night, there will always be a little star that will light your way home. Together we will win. Good days will come, I promise. It's played in lots of TikTok videos, showing soldiers returning home after a long stretch on reserve duty, often to their young children, their little stars that light their way home when they're away at war. המשפחה, החברים, אולי לצאת לבילויים, שיחות עמוקות, שיחות של הנפש בלילה, להתמודד עם שינויים, ההרגלים הישנים, הנשמה במלחמה עם הקרמה. עוד יבואו ימים טובים, אני מבטיח, עוד יבואו ימים טובים. בשעות החשוכות של הלילה תמיד יהיה כוכב קטן שיעיר לך את עצמך, את הדרך הביתה. תמיד זה הכי חשוך לפני הזריחה. מיליון רכבות דוהרות על אוסטרליה, לחפש רחוק את מה שנמצא לך מתחת לאף. כל משוך זה מדליה, קם ונופל אבל בדרך שלך. להתמודד עם הפחדים, להיפץ למים עמוקים, לזכור את הסוף, להגיע לחוף עד הלילה, להאזין גם לשירים, כי זמרים הם הרופאים הכי טובים שיש למדע להציע. עוד יבואו ימים רבים, אני מבטיח, עוד יבואו ימים טובים. גם בשעות החשוכות של הלילה תמיד יהיה כוכב קטן שיעיר לך את עצמך, את הדרך הביתה. תמיד זה הכי חשוך לפני הזריחה. מיליון רכבות דוהרות עד אוסטרליה,
Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Chadish yameinu kekedem. I Ask from the Winter by Chaim Gori. I ask from the winter to wake me with lightning and thunder, to shake us up and polish our souls and cleanse our hearts. I call on strong winds to come and rattle our streets, and rock trees laden with heavy branches and flags and frenzied laundry. I call on the wind to come from the world's four corners to remind us who we are and what is our finest hour. What do we do with our mourning, solidarity, healing, and hope? Hashivenu v'nashuva. We return and are returned to our values, to our people's story, to our shared memory. On October 6th, 2023, as part of our first ever Lab Shabbat, we celebrated the consecration of 47 kindergarten students who officially began their JLL education. After services, the clergy team received an email which read in part, "You all made my heart say wow tonight. I needed to let you all know tonight was one of the most incredible services I've ever been to on Shabbat or at WRT. It was the most warm and special feeling to look around our sanctuary tonight and see it so full of life from so many different age groups from our community. We went to bed with joy, excitement, and a sense of fulfillment. But then we woke up the next morning to notifications and messages. And the morning after that, we had the second session of our JLL year. Since then, our Jewish Learning Lab students, families, and educators have raised money for Israel through bake sales, written letters to Israeli peers, made solidarity bracelets, and continued learning about this place we know as our homeland. Our students in 5th grade and up have engaged in thoughtful, frank, and raw conversations filled with incredible questions and reflections. What do we do with all of this? We learn, we teach, we act, we love to the best of our ability. We were awoken and shaken, rattled and frenzied, and now we continue to seek our finest hour.
At this time, we'd like to invite forward our community choir as we conclude our service with these words and this melody that captures the Israeli spirit. Al hadvash ve'al ha'oketz, God, guard over the honey and the bee sting, the bitter and the sweet.
Shur
הברית, על הגן, על החומה, מיגון, מפחד פתע וממלחמה. שמור על המעט שיש לי, על האור ועל הטף, על הפרי שלא הבשיל עוד ושנאסף. על כל אלה, על כל אלה, שמור נא לי אלי הטוב, על הדבש ועל העוקץ, על הבשר והמתוק, על נתת אל תשכח את התקווה, השיבנו ונשובה אל הארץ הטובה.
מרשלי שילן ברוח, מרחוק נושר כוכב,
נשאלות ליבי בחושך נרשמות עכשיו. אנא שמור לי על כל אלה, ועל אהובי נפשי, על השקט, על הבכי ועל זה השיר. על כל אלה, על כל אלה, שמור נא לי אלי הטוב, על הדבש ועל העוקץ, על המר והמתוק, על נתת בור נטוע, אל תשכח את התקווה, השיבנו ונשובה אל הארץ
We'll invite our community choir to remain with us and ask the entire congregation to please rise for the singing of Hatikva.
עולות בלבב ונימה, נפש יהודי הומייה, ולפתי מזרח קדימה, עין לציון סופיה.
Yizkor, we remember. Sinai el hecharim me'ayin yavo ezri. I lift my eyes to the heavens, up to the hills. What is the source of my help? My help comes from the eternal maker of heaven and earth. 556.
השמש לא יככה וירח בלילה. אדוני ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך מעתה ועד עולם. הנה לא ינום ולא יישן שומר ישראל. אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך על יד ימינך. על יד ימינך.
We invite you to continue silently with your own prayers and meditations of memory and love. You may wish to turn to the readings between pages 570 and 592. We will hear Rebecca and Lachlan offer the serenade of Robert Dauber, writing from the ghetto of Terezin in 1942. Dauber adopted the light-minded tone of his father's music from a better time in the 1920s. The serenade was published more than 60 years after the composer's death in Dachau in 1945. Out of such depths, Dauber's music reaches us, as the music critic Jeremy Eichler put it, like the light from a distant star.
If I try, maybe I can see your shadow in the sodium light that masquerades as moon. If I try, I might take off like a sparrow, and I'll travel along a guiding breeze.
Very soon, that's the sound of longing. Are you there? Are you there? Will you answer me?
In my dreams, my beloved lies beside me. When the sun lights the room, I find it's only me. Only me.
Only you when the sun is gone.
Only me.
When the moon
With the world around me. Only you, with the sun and moon and stars around, what's left is only you. Will you answer me? Answer me.
No other psalm, perhaps no other prayer, but the Kaddish itself is as inseparable from our experience of grief and mourning as the 23rd. One phrase so simple and direct, yet emotionally profound, has made it so. Ki ata imadi, for you are with me. Or in the language of an earlier age, for thou art with me. To arrive at those words after passing through the shadow of death is to know, in the words of Rabbi Joshua Loth Liebman, that God contains and supports us as a mighty ocean contains and supports the infinitesimal drops of every wave. To arrive at those words is to feel at home in the cosmos, held and comforted, cared for and serene. The 23rd Psalm does not make promises that cannot be kept. The end of all evil, the eradication of suffering and pain, sunshine instead of shadows. It makes but one promise, only this: you are not alone.
Nafshi
With God as my shepherd, I shall not want. The Eternal makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside the still waters, restores my soul, guides me in straight paths for the sake of God's name. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Eternal forever. We turn to page 597.
Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kotsk would say, Ein davar shalem yoter milev shavur. There is nothing more whole than a broken heart. Says Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tsar me'od, v'ha'yikar lo lefached klal. We travel through this world on a very narrow bridge, and what matters most is this: do not be afraid. And Shakespeare, all that live must die, passing through nature to eternity. But we convey a measure of a human life's immortality when we pronounce that loved one's name before reciting the mourner's Kaddish. It's a way of reminding ourselves that the goodness, the nobility, the wisdom, and yes, the love in a single human life lives on long, long after the mortal coil is shed and the part of us that is dust returns to the earth. So we'll ask the whole community to rise at this time. As we speak the names of those taken from our WRT family since last Yom Kippur, these congregants, Mary Silk, Edmund H. Mantell, Brooke Cohen, Toby Cohen, Phyllis Rand, Marion Herman, Jerome S. Koch, Warren Sinsheimer, Remy Landau, Lois Zenkel, Vivian Adler, Kenneth Weiser, Zelda Damashek, Richard D. Moss, William S. Miller, Joyce Baumgarten, and Stephanie Kaplan Cohen. And these from our extended WRT family: Gloria Karp, David Schutan, Rowena Goodfarb, Eugene Cole, Roger Cannell, Betty Ferranti, Deanna Levine, Helen Green, Ray Dardick Josell, Yisroel Dardick, Stephen Getz, Leonore Galen Mendelson, Rabbi Amy Jarashi, Samantha Wall, Susan Chapro, Stephen Tainsky, Joan Youngman, Peter Young, Samuel Jacob Landau, Alan Greenberg, Jacob Nogi, Yuda Berger, Mariam Plattis, Richard Denmark, Robert Gordon, Jean Chalk, Faye Scala, Rabbi Peter Schweitzer, Neil Glassgall, Brian Coven, Matthew Atwood, Charles Wexler, Richard McInerney, Richard Weismer, Barbara Merwitzer, Nicholas Lewis, Richard Brock, Melissa Lashbrook, Anna Bass, Linda Alice Duca, Betty Krieger, Mary Emily Mayer, Marilyn Weiner, Rachel Dehan Sharabi, Gail Sansoni Weber, Kenneth Klausner, Maurice Green, Eric Herzog, Naomi Manners Stern, Jean Schwartz, George Koffs, Annette Mark, Daniel Kasdan, Miriam Weiss, Warren Haber Sr., Robert Discolo, Barbara Ann Wald, Kenneth Saltzman, Phyllis Finkelstein, Lawrence Raphael, Rita Londa, Gary Goldstein, Zachary Tolchin, Francine Tanser, Arthur Raffkind, Robert Leff, Karen Lally, Adeline Lesk, Elsa Glucksberg, Peggy Levitan, Martin Baber, Wilbur Freed, Shirley Ruth Shapiro, Cecile Schulman, Diane Gardner, Sandy Lutzker, David J. Ross, Ruth S. Ginsburg, Joan Gips, Sandra Tessler, Lucille Blazer Levy, Grace Neidish, Libby Klein, H. Richard Roberts, Florence S. Platkow, Bruce Werner, David Handelman, Elaine Gordon, Robert Bader, Florence Martin, Mary Claire Green, Gary J. Hutcher, James Ryder, Ruth Raskin, Alan Naftal, Sandra Fink, Elliot Zering, and Jacqueline Weinstein, and these the names inscribed in this book of memory, all victims of the attacks of October 7th, 2023. Zichronam livracha, let their memories continue to provide blessing. If I have inadvertently mispronounced a loved one's name, or if you have additional names for our commemoration this Yizkor, please speak them at this time. Page 606, we offer the Mourner's Kaddish together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, b'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chai echon uv'yom echon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'alam al almei maya, yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemed kudsha brichu, Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalom araba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru amen. With a little melody, we'll proceed straight into our Ne'ilah, the concluding service on this Day of Atonement. If you are choosing to leave at this time, just please do so silently, as the gates are about to close.
page 612. The long day is over, and the gates are closing. Slowly day fades into dusk. Soon the earth will darken. Our bodies weak and weary, our inner strength undiminished. This day has been a gift, uncluttered time, free from hurry and routine, appointments or assignments, a time to face our sins and imperfections, our dreams and yearnings for the life we want to live, a time to leave the clamor of the world and attend to the voice within. Long ago, the temple gates were locked at dusk. So too, at this hour, the gates of Yom Kippur begin to close. Have we done all that we needed to do? Have we said everything that needed to be said? The gates of God's compassion never close, but soon enough, our lives close in on us. Now, in the silence of the soul, now, before this holy day comes to an end, release the unshed tears, the deepest prayers locked in our hearts. Page 614. page 621. Yearning. Just a moment, a shaft of sunlight in the fog, a shift of mind and heart, a breath of peace. Just a moment, that's all I ask, to feel you there, to know your touch, to see the truth behind these words we speak. At the end of this long day, one last chance to stand before you. Exhausted as I am, I still have hope. Just a moment, let me pray.
יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה ועלמה תברח ירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה בריחו לעילה ולעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן
As we turn to page 624 for the last recitation of our tefillah, our central standing prayers, you'll note that the second bracha, the givurot, we will use different words in this final recitation. Instead of our typical practice of reciting Mechaye HaKol, who gives life to all, we will instead use Mechaye Metim, who gives life to the dead. On this Yom Kippur, this day of rehearsing our deaths, we are particularly in tune with what it means to feel God's strength, to feel our imperfection, and to feel revived by our prayers. Please rise.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה.
Zorreinu
מושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה, רב להושיע, מוריד עטל. מחכה לחיים בחסד, בחיי הטוב רחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ברופאי חולים, ומזהיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו, איש עיני עפר. להחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים.
We continue silently through page 639. You may remain standing or be seated. page 640. Open a gate for us when the gates are being closed, for the day is about to fade. The day shall end, the sun shall set. Let us enter your gates. Holy One, we pray, please be patient. Please pardon and forgive. Please show compassion. Please lead us to atonement and help us, please help us to conquer injustice and triumph over sin. Page 650. The future has an ancient heart. The tree still stands, your love endures. Remind us, we are children, still bewildered by the world, selfish, willful, lacking in patience, longing for praise, in need of hugs. Remind us, we are servants, day laborers, summoned every morning, lazy, distractible, focused on quick rewards, ennobled by your work. Remind us, we are a vineyard, watched over, yearned over, tended these 3,000 years, scorched by fire, but alive at the root, growing slowly toward the harvest day. The future has an ancient heart. The tree still stands. Your love endures. Please rise for our final vidui, the prayers of our confession on the bottom of 652.
Tzadikim אנחנו
top of 653 responsively. Ashamnu,
Ashamnu,
Bagadnu,
Bagadnu,
Gazalnu,
Gazalnu,
Dibarnu Dofi,
Dibarnu Dofi,
Evinu,
Evinu,
Vehir Shanu,
Vehir Shanu,
Zadnu,
Zadnu,
Hamasnu,
Hamasnu,
Tafanu Sheker,
Tafanu Sheker,
Yatsnura,
Yatsura,
Kizavnu,
Kizavnu,
Latsnu,
Latsnu,
Maradnu,
Maradnu,
Niatsnu,
Niatsnu,
Sararnu,
Sararnu,
Avinu,
Avinu,
Pashanu,
Pashanu,
Sararnu,
Sararnu,
Kishinu Oref,
Kishinu Oref,
Rashanu,
Rashanu,
Shichatnu,
Shichatnu,
Tiavnu,
Tiavnu,
Tahinu,
Tahinu,
Titanu,
Titanu,
After reflecting on the ways in which we have stumbled in the past year, we turn now to page 659 and conclude our confession with a reminder of the times we picked ourselves back up and chose to do good. We recite the first reading in English together. We loved and we wept. We were kind and spoke thoughtfully. We were faithful and trusting. We put forth effort. We were mindful. We embraced. We took delight in the holy books. We were creative and we yearned. We fought for justice and searched out the good. We tried our best and we were attentive. We did what you commanded us to do. We found meaning in Torah, and most of the time we did what is right. We proclaimed your name and we were accepting. We were joyful and we cared. We continue with Avinu Malkeinu on page 252.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu.
666. To live life in all its fullness is to stand in awe before an open gate, to gaze into a doorway of hope, a wondrous portal of possibilities. Many are the gates of our lives, many the treasures toward which they lead, and how many close behind us, lost, forgotten, and sealed forever. How many gates, how many years? Standing in awe before the gates of a new year, we see its most precious gift, the minutes and the hours, the days and the weeks, the treasure house of time. Every moment is a vessel of infinite holiness. Every morning, noon, and night is a gateway to life's immensity. How will we use this precious gift?
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שלמה שלמה מן שערך לערך מעלם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה לעילא ולעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן תתקבל צלותון ובאותיהון לכל ישראל קדם מבוכון דיבישמיא דיבישמיא ואמרו אמן יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיא וחיים וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל
We turn now to page 670 to prepare for the ending of the day and invite forward Noah Kroloff, Baal Tikiya, the sounder of the shofar. As the day ends, we stand as one before the gates of a new year, renewed by this day of atonement, made stronger by all who are with us and by those whose presence we feel within. As the long day fades into dusk, we join our voices in words of hope and dedication. Pitchu lanu sha'arei tzedek, navovam nodeya. Open for us the gates of righteousness that we may enter and praise the eternal source of life. Responsively, open for us the gates of sacred community, that we may enter and feel its healing power. Open for us the gates of truth and integrity, that we may enter and grow in faithfulness. Open for us the gates of devotion and principle, that we may enter and find enduring values and meaning. Open for us the gates of repentance and return, that we may enter and offer our best. Open for us the gates of forgiveness,
that we may enter and offer our humanity.
Open for us the gates of kindness and compassion, that we may enter and offer
our love.
Continuing responsively, as the Sabbath of Sabbaths ends, we say from the heart, Living source, you are ours, we are yours. From beyond time and space, you hold out your hand to receive us. Living source, you are ours, we are yours. You are the sovereign of remembrance, the voice of holiness. Your presence lights the way. Living source, you are ours, we are yours. Shema Yisrael, hear the shofar, witness to history, thunder to our souls. Living source, you are ours, we are yours. Happy are those who love the sound of the shofar, its mystic chords of memory. Living source, you are ours, we are yours. Hear the shofar, hear its cry of freedom, its call of courage, cherish its promise of hope. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Listen, Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one.
Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Baruch Shem Kevod Leolam Vaed.
Blessed is God's glorious majesty forever and ever. Yasher Koach. Page 674 for Havdalah.
La Yai la 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 la
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
outside. I think it's outside. It was last year, anyways.